Welcome everybody to Sephardic World, especially welcome to our patrons who are joining us live on Zoom, and also welcome to everybody on YouTube. Today we have a special speaker, Ton Thielen, who needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway. He was the archivist of the Netherlands Red Cross, and after sort of developing an interest in Sephardic genealogy, has made himself completely indispensable to everything we do. He was a co-founder of the Sephardic Diaspora Group on Facebook, which if you are not a member, please join, because it's a most excellent group. And also, of course, of the founder of the Sephardic Genealogical Society, and has made himself an expert and teacher of our subject. And today Ton will be talking about Sephardim and the allure of nobility. Obviously, Sephardim, Western Sephardim, of course, have delusions of grandeur, and Ton will today tell us if they are true or false. So, Ton, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you again. First, I'm going to present a few examples of persons of Sephardic descent who were awarded nobility in Holland in the 17th century. And the first one of them is Duarte Nunez da Costa, or Jacob Coria of Hamburg. The Corias are a famous family, coming from Portugal, and Jacob Coria was one of the first of them. Among his fellow Sephardim, he was one of the most remarkable in the secular world, as well as in synagogue affairs. And he served as agent of the Crown of Portugal in Hamburg from 1641 down to his death in 1664. King John of Portugal made him a knight of the royal household. The same rank as was subsequently bestowed on his son, Jerónimo Nunez da Costa, also an agent of the Crown of Portugal, but then in the United Provinces from 1645 until his death in 1697. Next is the formidable looking Antonio Lopez Suazo, Baron d'Averna. In the synagogue, his name was Isaac Iswell, and he was a member of the Lopez Suazo family, originally from Portugal and settled in Amsterdam. Antonio Lopez Suazo was a successful merchant and financier who did business with various European governments, including the Dutch Republic, Portugal, England, and beyond. And he was made a baron by King Pedro II of Portugal in 1680. The exact reason why he was granted this title is not clear, but it is believed to have been a reward for his financial contributions to the Portuguese crown as well as his service as a diplomat and intermediary between Portugal and other European countries. And this family is also remarkable in that we have many portraits of its family members. Next person is Don Manuel Belmonte, otherwise Isaac Nunez Belmonte, representative of the King of Spain since 1674. And among other things, he was a parnaso of the Portuguese Jewish community in 1698. And he had many business dealings overseas with Portugal, but also elsewhere. And I believe he was also prominent in the slave trade, alas. What you see to the left is a copy of his elevation to nobility by King Pedro, by the King of Spain. In the middle is his admittance to Dota. This is signature underneath. And to the right is his house on the Herengracht, one of the most expensive streets in Amsterdam. And he was created Baron on the 11th of July, 1693. But alas, a few years later, he already died. And his nephew, Francis Ximenes Belmonte, succeeded him as the Baron. All of the persons I mentioned were elevated to nobility. And the term elevation needs some explanation. There were two ways in which you could be rewarded with nobility. One was elevation. That means that you did not have noble ancestors before, or could not prove it, and then you were given a title. The other way was acknowledgement. Then your family already had a title, and you were confirmed in that same title. All of the persons I mentioned, all four of them, were elevated on the basis of their personal services to foreign rulers and by foreign rulers, not by the States of Holland, because the Republic of the Seven Provinces did not elevate many people to nobility at the time, in general, and none to Jews. So when these four examples represented cases wherein personal services were instrumental in their getting nobility, there's one exception, and that's the family Henriques Pimentel. I'll talk about them in the next slide. Other countries did elevate new persons to nobility, and to some degree also Jews. Few examples are Samson Gideon, Salvador Lozada in England, Lopez Pereira, who got the title Diego d'Aguilar, and Nathan Adam Arnsteiner in Austria. The last one was really a Pereira from Holland. Here is the example that I mentioned of someone who was acknowledged as a nobleman, Manuel, aka Isaac Henriques Pimentel. He claims noble ancestry on the basis of this barely readable copy from 1594, and it goes back. Its origin goes back to 1398. The document has to the left a series of later editions documenting the line of descent to the above mentioned Juan Alonso Pimentel. So this is the only case that I could find of someone getting nobility because his ancestors were already noblemen. And the trouble with this family is that the line of descent is unclear. So we have this document. It says that he is descendant of a Spanish noble family, but the line of descent has not been rendered accurately. We had a presentation on Sephardic World a year ago about the Henriques Pimentel family with the title Pimentel History and Holocaust. It's viewable on our YouTube channel. And then we get to the family that I will be mostly talking about the rest of this talk. In 1682, Francisco DaSilva was elevated to Marquis by Leopold, Holy Roman Emperor. Francisco DaSilva was born in Portugal, probably in Lisbon. With his father, he had been arrested by the Inquisition, but had been freed. And subsequently, he moved to Antwerp. He was a son of Duarte DaSilva and Johanna Brandao, who are famous in other respects. To the right, you see a nice image with at the top an image of the Emperor Leopold himself. And he looks like a true Holy Emperor of the house of, well, it's related to the Spanish monarchy, and they were emperors of the Habsburgs. And he has this typical Habsburg look of not looking all too bright, especially on the right-hand side. Here's a family tree of this Francisco DaSilva and his ancestors and his children and grandchildren. And in the middle is this Francisco DaSilva, who was the son of Duarte DaSilva, and he is famous in England because Duarte DaSilva fled from Portugal in 1663. No, that's not true. He was arrested by the Inquisition in 1657 and was freed in 1652, then languished for a bit in Portugal, but in 1663 he was asked to administer the dowry of Catherine of Braganza, the future wife of Charles II. He did so and never returned to Portugal. Samuel Pepys wrote about him in his diaries. To the left of Francisco is Diego da Pinto Silva, aka Isaac da Silva Solis, and I will talk about him later on. Among his children is Antonio da Silva y Castro, the second Marquis of Montfort. And here the family tree has a mistake. He did not marry Maria van der Does, but he had two illegitimate children with her. He married After that was Gracia del Soto, and after that was Sara Alvarez Vega. To the right of the children of Francisco DaSilva is a Sara Orbianca, and she made a last will in 1733, from which this family tree has been composed. Let's see. Next it was thought that there was a connection between this noble family of Duarte Francisco DaSilva on the one hand and the family Cappados on the other. The discussion about that connection has now spanned almost 2 centuries. And here you see 2 figures. To the left is Isaac da Costa, and to the right is Abraham Cappadoce, who was a descendant of one Rachel DaSilva, and her husband also named Abraham Cappadoce. Both were born in Sephardic families in Amsterdam, from families of Portuguese who had in a distant past fled from Portugal. And they were raised in Jewish faith, and they were proud of this Sephardic heritage. But eventually, they both converted to Christianity in 1822 at the same time, much to the shock and dismay of the families in the Sephardim. Their conversion was met with mixed reactions. Some members of the Jewish communities were appalled by the conversion and shunned them. Some were more accepting, and some even listened to the two and converted themselves. Isaac da Costa and Abraham Cappadoce were caught between 2 worlds, and they tried to bridge the divide between their Sephardic past and their Christian present. Both converted, but at the same time they were fascinated by their Jewish Sephardic descent. And they also thought that there must have been nobility in their respective family trees. Isaac da Costa became relatively famous. He had schools and streets named after him. Not more than a mile from where I live in The Hague, there is a Da Costa primary school. Abraham Cappadoce does have 1 street named after himself, and no schools. And this maybe had to do with the fact that he turned himself into a one-man sect, always telling others how to be more perfect Christians. And the fact that no schools are named after him was also influenced by his opposing vaccinations against smallpox. Isaac da Costa wrote a history of the Jews, Israel and the Volk, de geschiedenis der Joden. It was issued in 1848. There was a reprint in 1873, and there was a 3rd print in 1876. And the last one is not online, so I can't give you an example of its front page. But it has an edition which the first 2 prints do not have, adellijke geslachten onder de Israëlieten, noble families among the Jews. And the example I give here is a reprint that is online. And Da Costa begins by tracing the origins of the Jewish people, going back to biblical narratives to illustrate the founding of the nation, its early experiences. He highlights the importance of God's covenant with Abraham, which established the Jewish people as a chosen people with a unique mission. He is not all that negative about his former co-religionists. Throughout the centuries, Da Costa argues the Jewish people have faced numerous challenges and setbacks, including exile, persecution, oppression, and yet they continued to persevere. But this overall perspective is that of a Jew converted to Christianity, who believes that the real destiny of the Jewish people is converting to Christianity. His view of nobility among the Portuguese Jews is a bit strange. He knows of the examples cited at the beginning of his talk: Lopez, Belmonte, Nunez da Costa, Gaspi and DaSilva. But he is also convinced that a bit more research will reveal that these families descend from old Christian noble families. And he is also convinced that dozens of other Portuguese families with a little bit of research will also be able to prove noble descent. Of course, he also mentions his own family. Alas, he presents no proof for any of this, including for his own ancestors. The book by Isaac da Costa has been translated into English, and even very fast, namely in 1850, and the first edition was only from 1848. So that was a relatively fast translation. And the book, this book by Isaac da Costa has been reprinted in a blockbuster book, Noble Families Among the Sephardic Jews, with authors Isaac da Costa, of course, and it includes that edition of Noble Families Among the Portuguese Jews, and it has two other editions by Bertram Brewster, who goes into the Cappados family and also into possible noble descent of the family, and a reply by Cecil Ross. It's a perfect coffee table book. Hefty, large, nice paper, beautiful font. The section with illustrations is a bit of a letdown because the photographs it has are too small for the pages they are on, and not always good quality. And as you can see, it has indeed a nice font, very readable letters. It has been set up to impress the reader. To the left is one of the co-authors, Cecil Ross. And this is the man who paid for the book. Anthony E. Cappados, who was a grandson of Dr. Abraham Cappados, who we saw just now. and he inherited the archives of his grandfather, including many original 17th and 18th century documents. I wonder where that archive is now. Then we get to the link between the noble DaSilva family and the DaSilva ancestor of the Cappados. That is Rachel DaSilva. Here is her marriage band. She married 10 December 1683 with Abraham Cappados. It says Van A, which means from A, from Amsterdam. He's a merchant, 24 years. His mother is still alive, Esther Cappados. Rachel DaSilva is also from Amsterdam, 70 years of age. And her mother lives in Suriname. And she is assisted with her uncle, her guardian, Abraham Del Sato. And this gives us a clue to who her parents were. At the occasion of the marriage, a poem was made by Daniel Levi de Barrios, a man who lived from his pen, and he wrote histories of the Portuguese Jewish community in Amsterdam, but also poems on festive occasions, the birth of a son or the birth of a daughter or a marriage, like in this case. Here he translates the name Cappados in soft mantle, Kappa Doce. I have my reservations about this simple explanation. To the right we see not Abraham Cappados, but Daniel Levi de Barrios and his family. Daniel himself from Allure. Next to him his wife, to the right of him his son, and above the angel looking look-alike is his daughter. And the only reason I mention her is that she is a great-great-aunt of Benjamin Disraeli. Fast forward to 1920. In the publication Nederlands Patriciaat, which published genealogies of people who belonged to important families but didn't make the cut to nobility. It was in practice called the Blue Book because of its blue cover. There was also a red book, but that one was reserved for nobility. And here we see the beginning of the family tree of the Cappadoses. The first is Aaron, the second is Abraham Cappados from Amsterdam, etc. He married to Rachel DaSilva. And the next line was on the next page, and that allowed me to enlarge this sentence, which says 1728, daughter of Isaac, aka Ferdinando DaSilva, Marquis of Montfort and Rachel del Soto. So this publication follows the lead given by Isaac da Costa in his book, Noble Families Among the Jews. And this publication provoked a response by a guy called Meester Theodore Volk Lucasan. He was part of a younger generation of genealogists in the Netherlands who had a firm belief that genealogists should not perform a gentleman's hobby, that meant to provide a heroic and illustrious family of mostly patrician or noble families, but it should be viewed as an auxiliary science to history. He stressed that genealogies had to be documented in fact, and he took issue with the statement that Rachel was a daughter of a marquis. He reconstructed the DaSilva family as far as he could, and he showed the Francisco DaSilva and his children, and among those children was not a Rachel, and also not a grandchild Rachel married to a Cappadocia. So Rachel was not a daughter of a marquis, was his conclusion. And Volk Lucasan had a knack for spotting problems in genealogical publications. He also took down another genealogy with suspect origins, the one of Teixeira de Matos. Teixeira de Matos, the family itself believed that they had noble old Christian ancestors going back to Portugal and Spain. But in fact, they descended from a new Christian who turned up in Antwerp in the beginning of the 17th century. There was quite a row in the Netherlands. It established the name of Volk Lucasan, and in the end, it also led to more trustworthy genealogies in Nederlands Patriciaat and in Nederlands Adelsboek, the Dutch Book of Nobility. And then we go forward to 1936. The book that I already mentioned, Noble Families Among the Portuguese Jews. And both Wooster and Roth, who wrote the extra articles in the book, struggled with the question of noble ancestry for this Rachel DaSilva, wife of Abraham Cappados. Brewster in his report notes that there is a private note from Dr. Abraham Cappados, the one we saw up above as a co-converter to Christianity together with Isaac da Costa. This Abraham Cappados also researched his family. He had the archives, and he had a note that read, Isaac DaSilva, aka Don Fernando DaSilva, aka Don Fernando DaSilva, Marquis de Montfort. And both Brewster and Ross knew about the publication of Volk Lucasan. So they knew that the direct descent from Rachel DaSilva from the Marquis of Montfort was an impossibility. And they tried all sorts of things to still prove that this Isaac DaSilva somehow belonged in the family tree of Francisco DaSilva and Duarte DaSilva. And Ross indeed also notes the problem, and he has something more to say about Isaac DaSilva, the real father of Rachel DaSilva. And he says he has nothing to do with his namesake Isaac DaSilva Solis, the brother of Francisco DaSilva. Born in 1617, settled in Amsterdam. He was aged 38. On the 10th of June 1655, he was married to Rachel del Soto. That's a family that also contributed its fair share of martyrs to the cause of Judaism. Isaac de Soto died in 1668. His wife, shortly after his death, emigrated overseas to Suriname, leaving her one daughter, Rachel DaSilva, who later married Abraham Cappados, but taking two other daughters, and I believe that is because they were married off in Suriname. Here again, the family tree made by Cecil Ross. To the left, you see Diego da Pinto Silva, aka Isaac da Silva Solis. And Bertram Brewster suggests strongly that this is the father of Rachel DaSilva. But he also remarks that further research is needed. And Cecil Ross suggested that the brothers of Duarte da Silva, Francisco Simão da Silva, and Andrea da Silva may have had a son, Isaac da Silva, who then could very well be the father of Rachel. Some more about Jacob da Silva. We first encountered him in Brazil in 1649. His signature is the one above, Isaac da Silva, and below him is a Jacob da Silva that I can't place, but it could have been a brother of his. Next, he returns to Amsterdam. And in 1654, he pays church tax, Vinta, for the first time. And next is the signature under his marriage ban. And now you can compare it with the signature of the one that I found in Brazil. And the likeness between these signatures is so great that I have no hesitation that this is the same person. And then we come upon his last will. And in his last will, it is his alias is revealed. No, sorry, this is not his last will yet. We will get to that. This is an attestation, a notarial deed signed by Isaac and Moses da Silva. And in the deed itself, Isaac is named as Isaac and Moses da Silva. Apparently they were a company, aka Fernando Martinez and Moses da Silva. So indeed, there was a Fernando Martinez da Silva. And to the left, in the rectangular image, you see his signature. It's a bit hard to read, but it's I'll point the mouse to it. Here you see an F, and then an abbreviation, and then DO, Fernando. Here it says Martinez, and after that it says DaSilva. And here is his brother Moses DaSilva. And then we get to his importance within the community. Isaac DaSilva became a Parnas in Amsterdam in 1663. And here you see that same distinct signature. And it shows that in the synagogue he did not name himself Ferdinando. That name was reserved for business dealings. And this is his last will in 1668. And again, you see his distinct signature, Ferdinando Martinez DaSilva. That is here. And then his alias, Isaac DaSilva. And it appears that he has another alias, Hector DaSilva. From this last will, I reconstructed his family. His parents I found because Isaac DaSilva had a sister. His sister was Judith DaSilva, and she also married the Cappados. And his sister's marriage ban mentions that she was born in Lamego, Portugal. There's a book, Judeus de Lamego, and here we find a Fernão Martin Silva and a Maria DaSilva, and I suppose that these are Isaac DaSilva and Judith DaSilva. And their parents are Branca Cardoza and Antonio Alvarez Silva, New Christian merchant, and he came from Toledo in Spain. Isaac DaSilva, as it appears from his last will, had two brothers, Moses DaSilva, twice married, and Aaron DaSilva, who was also twice married, and there was a Judith DaSilva, and the family died out already in the male line in the 17th century. So all the Silvas that from this family that ever were lived in the 17th century, and there's no Marquis among them. There's no mention of the Isaac DaSilva Solis, brother Francisco DaSilva Marquis of Montfort, and also not of other families. These are apparently two distinct families. And with that, we can conclude that indeed the family Cappados had no noble ancestry. Here are the children of Isaac DaSilva and Rachel del Soto, as we also reconstructed from his last will and from later data. There's Moses, there's Aaron, who marries his niece Sarah DaSilva in Suriname. Rachel, the wife of Isaac DaSilva, died probably in Suriname. There's a notarial deed in which her uncle Abraham del Soto takes care of the inheritance. There's an Esther DaSilva, a Rachel DaSilva. I don't know where they were, where Esther went, but Rachel married Abraham Cappados, and in the middle is Ribka DaSilva, she also married in Suriname with Samuel Chaim de la Parra. This is one of the two branches of the La Parra family in Suriname. And my analysis of the DaSilva family is very nicely confirmed by this family tree. Up above is an Isaac del Soto. He had the son Abraham and the daughter Rachel. Rachel was married to Isaac DaSilva, and he had they had 5 children. To the right, you see another Rachel, Rachel DaSilva. She is married to Abraham Cappados. Here are also the children of Ribka, married to Samuel Chaim de la Parra, her children, and the grandchildren. Abraham del Soto was the guardian of Rachel DaSilva. Gracia DaSilva, and here we hit upon the true relation between the noble family of Francisco DaSilva and the Cappados family. Gracia del Soto married with Antonio DaSilva, the second Marquis of Montfort, son of Francisco. So Gracia is more or less related to Rachel DaSilva, but the relationship is not in the line of descent. I enlarged it a bit for the family of Abraham Cappados. And at the bottom are the children of Abraham Cappados and their children, grandchildren, and the line of Dr. Abraham Cappados, who lived in the 19th century, a friend of Isaac da Costa, is descended from him. But the allure endures. This picture I took this afternoon of a well-known genealogical website, and here we see Isaac DaSilva y Solis, son of Duarte DaSilva, Bianca de Solas DaSilva, and he is the father of Rachel DaSilva y Solas, wife of Abraham Cappados. So the old mess is still living, and it will be not easy to get rid of it. I looked for a bit more general information about elevations of Jews in Europe, and I found a publication that mentions ennoblements in Austria, Great Britain, and Russia of Jews in general, so Sephardim and Ashkenazim alike. In Austria, they had the most elevations, namely 270. Most of them are Ashkenazim, and I know of at least 3 of them who were Sephardim, but not many more. One was the Baron d'Aguilar, also famous in England. Another was Nathan Arnstein. And the third one was a Paixoto from the Middle East, who moved to Austria and got ennobled. In Great Britain, in the period of 1700 to 1912, there were 80 ennoblements of Jews, majority Ashkenazim, but here there are more examples of Sephardic ennoblements. And in Prussia, the period of research is very small for the lack of sources, but between 1868 and 1903, only 3 Jews were ennobled in Prussia. Prussia is one of the German states. And what I also gleaned from the publication of which the title is above is that it were mostly bankers and consuls general, who were elevated to nobility. I don't know if they inspired each other to ask for a noblement, but this is the end of my talk.
Thank you very much, and that was very good detective work. I'm sure you'll be hearing from the Cappados family lawyers quite soon.
I hope so.
Okay, so something that confuses me, and we may not know the answer to this, is if Spain and Portugal have purity of blood laws, how can Jews be elevated to the aristocracy?
Because they lived in several worlds at once. There were Jews in Holland, and in Portugal and Spain, they pretended to be Catholics, or the fact that they were former conversos was conveniently overlooked because of their importance for those countries. Lopez was instrumental in providing loans to Portugal to finance its armies, especially shortly after 1640, when Portugal had seceded from Spain and needed an army and needed the money to provide it with arms and food for the soldiers and hay for the horses.
Because you would need to be an old Christian anyway, so a converso would theoretically be,
technically,
and even a Catholic one.
Yeah,
I mean the hypocrisy is enormous.
yeah.
There's a number of questions in chat, but before we go there, when do you think this sort of general belief amongst Western Sephardim of our aristocratic ancestry took hold? Because a now deceased distant relative of mine, I've mentioned it before, in synagogue was absolutely convinced that our family was of some sort of noble ancestry, and of course we can see from the records that they were receiving tzedakah, they were the poorest of the poor.
Mm-hmm.
So is this something that really just happened in the 19th century, these sort of delusions of grandeur, when confronted with other sorts of Jews? Or do you have any thoughts?
Not really. All I can think of is that Sephardim always thought highly of themselves, especially in comparison with their Ashkenazim brethren. And I suppose that it really took off in the 19th century,
yeah.
Especially with this publication by Isaac da Costa.
Yes. We have a number of questions or comments in chat. Adam's shared a link. Adrian is saying, please explain the connection to the Montfort name My Morais ancestors are called Montfort Morais or Morais.
I must say that I have not been able to determine where this Montfort is. It's a place name,
Yes.
because noble titles are always coupled with place names.
But wasn't there a Simon de Montfort in England?
There was a
Very
Montfort.
famous.
There was a Montfort in England, so there was a Montfort in France, and there is a
He was part of the
Montfort.
ruling class for one of the kings, wasn't he? He was, but I can't remember.
Simon Montfort, yeah, it rings a bell, but
Simon de
no,
Montfort. Yeah, it might be worth looking at it. I can't remember. How terrible that is.
But there was a place called Montfort in the Netherlands, and there's a place in Belgium, I believe.
Also in Portugal.
Also called Montfort. So it's a mountain with a fort on it. So it seems like a general name.
Adam says that DNA tests have his DNA tests have proven that the Nunez de Costas were never old Christian, and in fact a Jewish family dating back to temple times.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. So descended from King David instead, maybe. So yeah. Kevin says, didn't the Da Costa marry into a branch of the Curiel family, and claimed by the 1800s that the Curiels of Amsterdam had died out in the male line?
That's quite possible, but that's only in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I don't know. I should do some research to look that up.
Diane asks that on the frontiers she noticed that Isaac da Costa was a doctor. Is that a medical doctor or doctor of philosophy?
Medical doctor. That's where his but his opposition to vaccination came purely from theological grounds. He said it was not the will of God that people interfered with their own health.
Oh, that's very, very modern, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I put Simon de Montfort in the chat. He was quite important in the early Middle Ages.
Oh, I'm sure that's a different one.
Yeah, that's a different one. Yeah.
I think his father, that de Montfort's father, was also involved in the Albigensian crusades in southern France. Ali asks, what's the provenance of the handwritten tree that you were showing at the end?
I will have to look that up.
Okay.
It's somewhere in the archives of the Portuguese Jewish community of Amsterdam.
Okay, it's not something you photoshopped a bit earlier. So
no, it's not from the time that these persons lived, but sometime later, because there are also grandchildren and even great grandchildren on the chart. So it must have been made, I think, end 18th century. But then memory was still fresh.
Okay, Doris says that she's a direct descendant of Jacob Basavi von Trauenberg, 1580 to 1634, court Jew of Prague, enabled by Ferdinand II in 1622. Presumably he's a Habsburg. Benjamin Disraeli on his maternal side was also descended from Basavi or otherwise related to them. Do you have any details of genealogy, possible Sephardic roots?
No, I have not, but I have this book. Let me see. Nobilitas in Judahorum. I don't know if you can see it.
If you hold it still, yeah. Yeah.
And this has all the persons who were ennobled in the Austrian Empire, and Basevi was the first one mentioned in the book. I can send a photocopy.
Okay.
It's in German though.
The British Library actually has these sort of enormous sort of genealogical tomes of Spanish families and also some Portuguese families. It might be interesting to see what they're saying at the other end. I'm guessing anything Jewish has been sort of airbrushed out. But, and
I was wondering if you have anything on the Disraeli side. Is there any more information on his descent?
As far as I know, he is. What I do know is his family is from Italy. His mother is someone whose father came from Amsterdam, Cypriot de Gabai. And I would have to look that up. I do have something on the Cypriot de Gabai family.
Thank you.
Basevi, I don't know if Disraeli descends from Basevi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce, if you just let me read Lola's comment first. In researching the DaSilva family, I came across a coat of arms which has a lamb above the coat, and beneath the coat is written in Hebrew what I believe to be Psalm 23 verse 1. What does it mean if a family has a coat of arms? Do they buy them in some countries? Yes.
Yeah, yes and no. It means that you have a coat of arms, but it doesn't prove that you are of noble descent, because basically everyone can have a coat of arms, and many people did. And in the Netherlands, I don't know if that is possible in other countries. In the Netherlands, you can register your a coat of arms with the Central Bureau of Genealogy, and they also employ people who design these coats of arms. So, and that includes a cost. So yeah, I suppose you can buy them. But many people also go to the internet, search coat of arms, and always find something, especially Portuguese Jews who have the same last names as Catholic Portuguese. They, if you are a Rodriguez, chances are there's a noble family Rodriguez, or in the case of DaSilva, there is a noble family DaSilva. But I've not been able to find the link between the DaSilva family and noble ancestry in Spain. On the Sephardic diaspora, I've written a lot about the DaSilva family, and I'm a bit like Volk Lucasan. I destroy old family trees by the dozen.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, in England, you can go along to the College of Arms and register your own coat of arms, presumably for quite a large fee, and I think they'll give you a beautiful manuscript with your coat of arms painted on it. But,
yeah, so to sum it up, it is not known where the coat of arms comes from. If an ancestor had it registered or designed or plucked it from a book, or if he has had it registered, that is the one chance that you have that it's documented where it comes from.
Because of course the old Jewish encyclopedia was packed with Sephardic coats of arms of dubious origins. But anyway, Bruce, I'm sorry to have kept you.
No. It's okay. Ton, this may be a really juvenile question. Why would you want to be nobility? Did you get land? Did you get the right to pay lesser taxes? Did you get rights to import and export at a cheaper rate? What were the benefits, or was this a defensive maneuver by the monarch of the time or the others to not have you fund their adversaries, whether in business or in military terms? What was why did you want to do it, and why wouldn't you want to be recognized as noble?
First, it has to do with the society as it was in the 16th, 17th, 18th century. There was nobility, you had burghers, and you had farmers, and even below that you had the poor, and it was layered, and one layer did not mix with the others. So it was, and the nobility stood at the top. So if you were named as a nobleman, this meant sort of a promotion in life. And it also gave you access to other nobility. Your daughters or sons could marry the sons and daughters of other nobility. But it also came with all kinds of perks. Some came with an annual income. Some came with certain rights, like the Belmontes. They got the right to, they had some strange rights. They had the right to mint their own coins. But they also had the right to declare that their bastard sons were not bastard anymore, they were legit. And there's a whole list of that. And you can find that in the fascinating book about the Belmonte family by Richard Gottheil, and it's available on Google Books. Gottheil is with double L.
Thanks, Don. Thanks.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I just imagine that there are country clubs of noblemen that nobody wants to go to. And I recall the Groucho Marx phrase of, I would never join a club that would have me. So I wonder, and then there's Caddyshack. So I just wonder how functional this part of the society was, or was it a way of creating idiots?
You also have to differentiate between different countries. And in France, Louis XIV, the 14th, he gathered all the nobility in his own palace. He organized feasts and balls and hunting parties, all so that he could keep an eye on them through personal contact. And it functioned for 60 years, so it was quite a success.
And French aristocrats mostly didn't pay tax as well. I think there's no more. Kevin comments that let's not forget our ancestors all adopted the names of aristocratic families on converting. I'm not sure if that's true, is it? Because I mean, these are also sort of common. I mean, these are names used by aristocrats, but also names used by commoners as well, I think. Of course, we've already overextended. I asked Chat GBT to write a poem praising Ton in the style of Daniel Levy de Barrios. I shall share it in the chat rather than. reading it myself. If anyone has a good declamatory voice, then perhaps they should do so. But I just think it's interesting how technology is taking over. I thought it was going to be in Latin, but they put it into English. So shall we wind up? I'd like obviously to thank Ton for speaking and for his forensic research. I thought that was very impressive piece of work. Sorry, two new messages. And we shall be back next week with a speaker who is Tom. Can you remember the speaker next week? Probably not.
No.
But they're very good, and I'm really sorry it's been a very long day, and we'd like to thank everyone for attending, especially our patrons, without whom we wouldn't be here. We'd really encourage everyone who can to come and join us in London at the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies conference. It would be nice to actually meet as many people as we can in the flesh. And thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you all again next week. So somebody was asking when this was going to go live on YouTube. It will be live automatically. It will be edited in the next few days.
Could you just say when the Jewish Genealogical Society is again, please? Very sorry.
Okay, it is starts on the 30th of July and goes on to the 3rd of August.
Thank you.
And the Tisha B'Av is on the 26th. And in case anyone is going to be coming to London a bit earlier, Bevis Marks is always quite impressive. It's draped into black velvet and twilight with candles, and I'm sure everyone would be very welcome to attend. And with that, Ton, do you have any final words?
No, thank you, David, for hosting.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next week.